We're live. Hello, Internet. Welcome to Puerto Rico. I am here with new friends today, finding out about Puerto Rico and finding out about the opportunities to invest in this community or move startups here, all the things that I love doing in Silicon Valley. And so thank you for coming to join me.
Thank you for asking me to be here.
Yes. And so can you introduce yourself to everybody and tell them about Against the Odds Ventures and the things that you do here?
Do you want just a brief introduction?
You can, no, I like long.
You want a long introduction?
You're the one that has to run away to go do another call. I mean, we could do this all
we could
day
do this
long.
all day, great. Okay, well, because I can be long-winded. My name is Jennifer Hopp. I'm from Silicon Valley, but now live here in Puerto Rico. I started an early-stage venture capital fund called Against the Odds, ATO Ventures, which stands for Against the Odds. And we are based in Puerto Rico, but we invest globally. So we're looking at startups that are just ready to launch, mainly in the health, fitness, wellness, as well as digital media and entertainment spaces. And we look to bring them here to incubate and grow.
Okay, so you look to bring their headquarters here, part of their team here. Help me understand the different variables of bringing a Silicon Valley, Manhattan, Dubai, Sydney based team to move here and actually have things happening in this location.
Sure. So we are looking at startups when they are literally pre-revenue, pre-funding. So they're very small. So generally it's a team of like 5 or fewer people at the time that we're getting involved. And so when we say move them here, we mean actually moving the whole team here. And while that isn't a requirement of the fund, it's something that we think makes a lot of sense because of the advantages that Puerto Rico has. And we are able to then down the line have bigger returns for our investors.
And are your investors primarily based here, or do they come from one location mostly, or is it really a global investment?
No, primarily most of our investors are out of Silicon Valley.
Okay.
And so, we'd love to have more people from Puerto Rico, but venture capital is extraordinarily new here. There are only 2 funds on the island. Mine is the first outside fund, and the other is a spin out of a PE fund that's been here for quite a while. So venture capital is brand new, and so we're just educating people about what venture capital is. So we do have a couple of people that are here as residents that moved to Puerto Rico mainly from Silicon Valley and New York, but most of our biggest investors are Silicon Valley investors.
Now, Pamela's an art director. She does a lot of photography and lots of things around creative stuff. And so what's the creative community like around here? Like if somebody like Pamela came here, what type of environment is there for her with startups and the local community? Like, help us understand that element.
You know, so I was just having this conversation, and there is data around this that I should know but I don't. But it's the number of artists in this community is greater per capita than I think anywhere in the U.S. And that means visual artists, musicians, even chefs. That's why the food is amazing here. The art is amazing here. When you walk down the street, you hear a lot of music and people performing. The restaurants all have live performers because we have more professional musicians per capita than just about anywhere else. We have more professional artists.
Right. I've noticed it,
places. And so the creative industry here is really robust, and there's an arts culture for sure.
What would you like to see more of? Like, if you had people importing their life here, are you looking for more visionary startup people, more technical builders, more artists, more people with money, resources to be able to fund things? Like, what's the greatest need for people? Because obviously a big draw is Acts 2022, saving on taxes, being able to reinvest what you would have had to pay in tax money into investing in things. But help me understand, like, what's the needs in terms of human capital?
Sure. Well, my focus and what I know is early stage startup tech communities, right? So obviously spending a lot of my life in Silicon Valley, as well as being an entrepreneur who has started and sold companies and now doing venture capital, this is what I know. And part of the reason I came here was because I see the opportunity, and I see that we are in a place that can be one of the next big global innovation hubs. We can build another community that's very similar but different than Silicon Valley or Austin or Boston or some of these other areas that have grown in early stage technology companies. And so for me, I just want to make sure that startups understand how much further their development and their dollars will go here in this community. And then that obviously attracts venture capital as well eventually. So the idea is to build that startup ecosystem, and the biggest issue that we have right now in Puerto Rico is just getting the word out and letting people understand what the benefits are. And yes, it's the tax incentives, but people don't really even understand kind of what that means and how that impacts them. They think, okay, well, we're not paying taxes. How big of a deal can that be? But if you really think about it in terms of the returns, right? These are all, your returns are all based on your valuation, which is usually a multiple of your bottom line, right? And so you're looking at, by coming here, and I'll just talk about the taxes for a minute, but we should really talk about all of the other benefits of being on the island. But what people hear about is the taxes.
What's the initial it's the initial draw.
Yeah, it's the initial draw.
But then
for
the
a lot of
lifestyle
people.
seems to be really important.
Yeah, I was flipped. I came down here originally because I was invited to spend some time with some startups. Was incredibly impressed with them, and so kept coming back. And then just fell in love with the island, fell in love with the people and the culture and the weather and just everything about it, and wanted to move, and saw the opportunity to build this tech ecosystem. Because it was already being done, right? People have been spending 10, 15 years building and laying the foundation. So I just saw it as an opportunity to be a part of the story and what's already happening, and hopeful that I can contribute some of what I've learned in Silicon Valley with my experience in startups here. But for other people, the first reason they come is the tax incentives. And for a startup, what that means is that your investors will have higher returns at the end of the day. You're able to compete with other startups in a way that others can't. So everything else being equal, you think about this, right? Your cost of living is lower. And your quality of life is higher. Your cost of hiring is lower. So now your EBITDA is higher, right? And then on top of that, you're not paying taxes on that EBITDA. So now you have a net income that's significantly higher. When you go to be acquired, your valuations are going to be higher. That means your investors' return on investment is going to be higher.
Right.
And so it just makes the math just makes sense. Like we know out in Silicon Valley, we always want. You hear the VC say they want their startups nearby. They always want them to live there, but it makes no sense to force your startups to, grow in the most expensive place in the country, especially when you're dealing with developers who we have to compete now. I saw some stats of what they're, like Apple and some of these other companies are paying engineers right out of undergrad. It goes up to $200,000 a year. There's just no way you can compete against that as a startup.
Right.
Whereas you come here, we have an incredible workforce and talent available. Our engineers are amazing. They just need a reason to stay. And so as we bring more technology companies down, we keep our engineers, we draw people back, and then, obviously the cycle grows.
So let me ask this about investors. What type of investors would you say would be most interested in your experience? Like the pre-seed, seed investors, the larger VC or large corporations, the private equity groups, or even venture debt. Is there room in Puerto Rico's ecosystem for everybody, or is it really more niche-y to like pre-seed, seed angel?
No, in fact, what we see the first people coming down, there's a lot of PE activity, right? So there's a lot of real estate activity, and now we're seeing some ozone stuff, which the opportunity zone things are more geared toward real estate right now. Eventually, we hope that they'll get all the policies straightened out and it'll work better for technology funds and that kind of thing. And I'm the earliest stage investor that I know of on the island, and I pretty much know everyone. The other incubators and venture style investors and even angels are coming in after launch and after revenue. So if you think about the accelerator programs, they're all just that. They're accelerator programs. They require their startups to have later stage. And a lot of that is the fear, right? So venture capital is new, as we talked about, and venture capital is risky. And the earlier you come in, the riskier it gets. And so for people who aren't used to venture capital to begin with and aren't used to investing in early stage to begin with, it becomes very risky. So one of the things we do is we have a risk mitigating strategy. So we actually test out market validation, make sure there's product market fit, which is the number one reason why startups fail, and we test it before putting in a significant check. So having those strategies that mitigate risk, I think, will be important to attracting people to the island. And the reason I say that is, to answer your question, there's room for everybody. Definitely not just early stage, but I would love for more people early stage to come down. But it's going to be important for those of us who are putting our necks out and believing in the island and coming here first to really, knock it out of the park, because if we don't succeed, then others aren't going to follow us. But two, a really good way to do that is to have these risk mitigating strategies so that we can make venture capital in the earlier stages where it's needed more palpable for people who aren't used to venture capital.
Okay.
Pamela, do you have any questions?
How are you connecting with these companies, or even individuals like myself in New York who don't know about how awesome it is here?
It's interesting because for deal flow, it's one thing, right? So for deal flow from the firm, I get a lot of referrals from venture capitalists who get inbound leads from people that are too early, right? So we come in earlier. Believe it or not, even though I've already professed before you started this that I know nothing about social media, I'm the worst. I'm the worst. But a lot of startups find me on Instagram. So my handle is Hopp.VC on Instagram. So HOPP.VC. Hop like jump. People are always like, are you saying hot or hop? No, it's hop like jump, but with two P's. So they find me on Instagram, and this is the secret. Entrepreneurs have discovered that I will answer Instagram, whereas an email gets lost. Right? So I get a lot of inbound flow from social media, and then also we reach out to do some programs with other incubators and that kind of thing.
Okay.
As far as getting the word about Puerto Rico, we're just starting that. So I'm going to San Francisco next week, and we'll be hosting a cocktail event there. We're hosting another cocktail event in LA, where we're just going to talk about what you should know about Puerto Rico.
That's awesome. Yeah. And what is the best way to get a hold of you if somebody is interested in exploring things? Is it, if it's an investor, as an example, do you want them to go on Instagram?
Yeah, actually you can, but investors can go to the website, which is ATOventures.com, and there's contact information there for investors. They, can contact you, and I'll give you my secret email address that actually gets to me, sort of, sometimes.
Yeah, sort of.
You really got to, actually, this is the address you need to know. It's nadia.sola@atoventures.com. So she takes care of all my calendars. So
that's great.
So you can email her. But really, the best way to connect with me is probably on Instagram if you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Pamela, do you have a final question?
Is there any events happening in New York anytime soon this summer? Oh.
I just learned that there is a Puerto Rico parade in New York. Did you know this?
Yeah, there is.
I didn't know. So
yeah.
that I know is coming up, and I'm bummed because I can't be there. But no, I don't have any dates off the top of my head, but I am planning to make a trip up there toward the end of May.
There should be a meetup to talk about all of this.
Well, we want to do a cocktail event there where we talk about the investment opportunities and why you should be in Puerto Rico. So if you're around, we'll hook something up.
Fun. All right, here comes the Google disc. That means the interview is over.